Efosa received a call from the village head. The man's voice was urgent, his tone laced with concern. "Efosa," the village head began, "there is something you need to know. Ehiz and Jude are planning something that might cause trouble for you and your companies." Efosa listening intently as the village head explained that Ehiz and Jude, feeling their newfound successes had given them the leverage they needed, had been meeting with some local politicians. The two brothers were planning to use their connection with Efosa's company to negotiate land deals and secure contracts for themselves, hoping to gain even more wealth and influence. They had no intention of acknowledging that it was Efosa's company that had given them this position in the first place. Efosa felt a mix of anger and disappointment. He had known that his brothers were ambitious, but he had hoped that they would respect the boundaries he had set, respect for the hard work that had made their current lives possible. Instead, they were trying to exploit his name for their own gain, unaware that it was he who had laid the foundation for their success. "That is disappointing," Efosa said quietly. "But it's not the first time they have tried something like this. I will handle it." As the call ended, Efosa sat back in his chair, deep in thought. He knew this was the moment when things would begin to change. His brothers, having tasted a small fraction of the wealth he had earned, were now attempting to climb even higher on the back of his own hard work. He didn't realize the weight of the responsibility they were playing with. They were playing with fire. Efosa turned to Esoe, who had been quietly listening. "I think it's time we stop being passive about this," he said, his voice firm. "They are using my company's name to get ahead, but they don't understand the risks. They think they can manipulate the system, but I've worked too hard to let that happen." Esoe placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression resolute. "I'll be by your side, Efosa. Whatever you decide, we'll face it together." Efosa smiled gratefully for her unwavering support. He knew this moment was inevitable. The truth would have to come out eventually. But now, he had a new sense of determination. He had built everything from the ground up and wasn't about to let his brothers destroy it with their greed and ignorance. The next day, Efosa decided to confront the situation head-on. He called a meeting with his personal assistant and a few trusted senior staff members. He wanted to ensure that his company's name and reputation were protected and that no one, not even his brothers, would use it for personal gain without understanding the gravity of the responsibility involved. As he prepared to leave for Ogute, Efosa knew that this visit would be different. It wouldn't just be a visit to his childhood home. This time, it would be a confrontation, a moment where he would take control of the narrative once and for all. He was done being passive. It was time to show his brothers the true meaning of hard work, responsibility, and integrity. The stage was set for a short showdown. Efosa was ready, but as he packed his bags and prepared to leave for the village, he couldn't help but wonder, would his brothers finally understand, or would they continue to live in the fantasy they had created for themselves? Only time would tell. Efosa, after days of contemplation and strategizing, finally made the decision to return to Ogute. He knew the confrontation with his brothers was inevitable, but he also understood the complexity of the situation. The village head's words weighed heavily on his mind. As much as he wanted to expose the truth and take control of his brother's actions, he knew that doing so recklessly would cause more harm than good. There were too many unknowns, too many risks involved. When Efosa arrived in Ogute, he decided to first visit the village head, seeking guidance before he took any further steps. The village head had always been a source of wisdom for him, offering practical advice and warnings when needed. Efosa needed to understand how to navigate the delicate situation with his brothers without provoking them or putting himself in danger. Upon arriving at the village head's home, Efosa was greeted warmly. As always, the old man had always seen potential in Efosa. Even when the others had mocked him, they sat in the shade of a large mango tree in the village head's compound, and after exchanging pleasantries, Efosa got straight to the point.
Sir, I know what my brothers are doing. I am aware of their plans to use my company for their own gain. I need to put an end to it. Efosa, you must be very careful. The truth is, your brothers are not as foolish as you think. They are ambitious, yes, but they are also dangerous. You may have outgrown them, but they still have influence in the village, and they are well connected with local politicians. If you confront them openly, it could lead to trouble, serious trouble. Do you understand?
But they are using my name to get ahead. They don't respect me, and they don't even know that I'm the one who made all this possible. They think they can manipulate everything, and I've had enough.
I know you want to right the wrongs of the past, but you have to be smart about it. You've worked too hard to let your brothers tear it all down. If you reveal your identity to them too soon, or confront them in the wrong way, it could backfire. Trust me, you don't want that.
That night, as Efosa sat alone in his hotel room in Ogute, he reflected on everything the village head had said. It felt like a war was brewing beneath his surface, one that neither Ehiz nor Jude were prepared for. Efosa was no longer a naive boy they had once mocked. He was a man of power, influence, and wisdom. His years of struggle had forged him into someone who understood the stakes of ambition, and he wasn't about to let his brother's unchecked greed undo everything he had built. The next few days in Ogute were uneventful. Efosa kept a low profile, occasionally bumping into his brothers in the village without revealing his identity. They still had no idea who he really was. Efosa watched them closely, studying their every move, their every word. His brothers were indeed ambitious, more so than he had ever anticipated. They had already begun to approach local politicians, trying to secure land details and deals business, ventures into using their connection to Efosa's company, though they still had no idea it was Efosa who owned it. Efosa's personal assistant had sent him detailed reports about their movements, and it was clear that they were moving fast, too fast for someone who had no real understanding of the business they were trying to manipulate. Efosa could already see the cracks in their plans. They were greedy, but they were also unprepared for the responsibilities that came with their ambition. Efosa smiled to himself. The village head was right. They would make a mistake sooner or later. It was only a matter of time before their own greed and arrogance became their undoing. For now, Efosa would bide his time, continuing to monitor his brothers and prepare for the moment when he would reveal himself, not as a victim, but as a man who had the power to decide their fate. Efosa had made the decision to fully embrace the role of a junior staff member in his own company. It was a bold move, but it gave him the perfect cover to observe his brothers closely without raising any suspicion. With them, he was just another employee, someone who had no idea of the true nature of the company they are working for. The idea was to gather information, learn their tactics, and wait for the right moment to expose them without putting himself at risk. So day after day, Efosa worked tirelessly in the lower ranks of the company. He kept his head down, making himself as invisible as possible. He had assumed the role of a humble servant, someone who worked long hours behind the scenes, gathering documents, managing minor tasks, and reporting to his brothers and their immediate supervisors. While they were focused on their personal ambitions, Efosa observed, taking note of every misstep they made. The tension in the company had been building for months. Ehiz and Jude were beginning to flaunt their influence, boasting about the new connections they were making with powerful local politicians. They saw the association with Efosa's company as their ticket to even greater wealth and influence. But they were still clueless about a man who was silently monitoring their every move from the shadows. One day, a major conference meeting was scheduled, an event where senior executives from various departments would come together to discuss the company's future. Esoe, Efosa's fiancée, and the company's legal counsel was present as well. She had been working diligently to help Efosa ensure the company's legal matters were in order. But what was meant to be a professional meeting soon became a display of arrogance, especially when Efosa's brothers were involved. As the meeting progressed, Efosa's brothers Ehiz and Jude seemed determined to impress Esoe, who had become a key figure in the company, especially as a lawyer. They went out of their way to act like they were in control, laughing loudly at their own jokes and speaking with exaggerated authority. The more they spoke, the more they showcased their ignorance about the company's inner workings. Yet, they didn't seem to care. They believed their influence was enough to carry them through. At one point, as the discussion turned to financial matters, Efosa spoke up with a simple but insightful suggestion about one of the upcoming projects. His voice was quiet but firm, and it caught the attention of everyone in the room. Ehiz, noticing the slight discomfort among the executives at Efosa's input, decided to mock him.
Our very own junior assistant has something to contribute. Efosa, you should stick to carrying the coffee, mate. Leave the real decisions to the ones who know how to handle business. Maybe you should clean the office while we handle things like professionals. It's cute that you're trying to act like one of us, but we know where your place is.
Esoe's eyes narrowed, and she exchanged an uncomfortable glance with Efosa, though she maintained her professional demeanor. Tension in the room was thick, and Efosa could feel his blood begin to boil. It was one thing for his brothers to mock him in private, but now, in front of the entire conference room, they had crossed the line. They didn't just mock his ideas, they mocked his very existence. Efosa took a deep breath, his calm exterior masking the anger bubbling inside him. He was in control. He had to be. But then, as he looked at Esoe, he saw something that took him by surprise, something that gave him a glimmer of hope. Instead of shrinking back, as many others might have, she stood tall, her posture unshaken, her gaze fixed firmly on Ehiz and Jude. Efosa could see the way her lips tightened as she prepared to speak. She turned to Ehiz and Jude, her voice cool and unwavering.
Gentlemen, with all due respect, mocking your colleagues is neither professional nor productive. This is not a place for games. If you wish to succeed, I suggest you treat every member of this company with the respect they deserve, regardless of their position. After all, it is the collective effort that has built this company, not just the effort of a few, so act your age, gentlemen.
Ehiz and Jude, momentarily taken aback, tried to cover their tracks. Jude laughed nervously, attempting to regain control of the conversation. Well, of course, we didn't mean it that way. Just a bit of brotherly banter, right, Ehiz? Ehiz too tried to laugh it off, but Efosa could see the cracks in their facade. Their plan to impress Esoe by belittling him had backfired spectacularly. They had underestimated her and him. Efosa stood up slowly, his voice calm and measured.
Gentlemen, perhaps you've forgotten that every role in this company is crucial to its success. I may not be in your position now, but that does not mean I haven't contributed to this company in ways you can't even begin to understand. And you would do well to remember that. If you continue to underestimate those around you, you'll find yourselves out of your depth. The success of this company, and by extension, your own, depends on a collective effort, not just your own ambitions.
The room fell into uneasy silence. Efosa could see the guilt and frustration flicker in his brother's eyes, but they didn't dare challenge him further. They knew their time to speak had passed. They had exposed themselves as petty and insecure, hoping to use their position to impress Esohe. The worst part was that they didn't even realize how far they had gone. Esohe, maintaining her professional composure, turned back to the meeting agenda, her gaze never wavering from the papers in front of her. He had made her point, and Efosa had made his. His brothers were playing a dangerous game, one they didn't fully understand. As the meeting continued, Efosa felt a strange sense of satisfaction. His brothers had mocked him, thinking they could humiliate him in front of the entire room. But all they had succeeded in doing was showing their own insecurity. They had tried to use their influence to win Esohe's favor, but in the end, they had failed miserably. Later that evening, Efosa and Esohe returned to their hotel, the weight of the day heavy on their shoulders. Though the meeting had gone better than he expected, Efosa knew that his brothers were not finished. They would continue to scheme, to try to undermine him in subtle ways, all in the name of self-promotion. But Efosa had learned to deal with people like them. He had the patience, the wisdom, and resources to take them down without even knowing it. This game was far from over, and when the time came to expose his true identity, he would do it on his own terms, with the strength of the company and the truth on his side. From now, he will wait. He will observe, and he will let his brothers dig their own hole deeper. But one thing was certain, their time was running out. As the days passed, Efosa continued to watch his brothers closely, both in their professional and personal lives. While they tried to maintain the illusion of success and control, their arrogance only made it easier for Efosa to uncover the cracks in their facade. He had learned to play the long game, and now it was time to act. One evening, while going through some financial reports, Efosa came across a set of documents that immediately caught his attention. It was a series of transactions that looked suspicious. Funds being transferred out of the company accounts with no clear justification. There were invoices for goods and services that didn't match anything in the company's actual operations. The more Efosa dug into the papers, the clearer it became. Ehiz and Jude had been siphoning money from the company. They had been using their positions to manipulate the accounts and redirect funds for personal gain. Efosa was stunned, but not entirely surprised. He had suspected something like this might happen, but the extent of their actions was far worse than he could have imagined. Documents revealed that they had been gradually embezzling large sums, padding their pockets with money that should have gone into the company's growth and operations. They had been siphoning funds for months, possibly even years, and they thought they had covered their tracks well. Efosa knew that this was a pivotal moment. He could not allow his brothers to continue draining the company, especially when they were doing it under the guise of his name. His first priority was to stop them from accessing the company's accounts. In a swift and calculated move, Efosa arranged for the company's financial accounts to be monitored and locked down. He made sure that all of Ehiz and Jude's assets was cut off immediately, using his trusted employees in the accounting department to secure the accounts. Without money, both brothers found themselves unable to make any transactions or access the company's funds they had been misappropriating. The security protocols were changed, and all accounts were now under the direct supervision of Efosa's trusted financial team. But locking their access to the accounts wasn't enough. Efosa knew that the company's operations still needed strong leadership to prevent his brothers from undermining everything he had built. He had to act quickly to ensure that his brothers didn't try to seize control of the company in another way. It was time for a bold move. Efosa looked at Esohe, his fiancée, and one of the few people in his life he could trust completely. He had always known her to be strong, capable, and driven, qualities that were exactly what the company needed in order to thrive. Efosa had watched her over the months, and he had come to the conclusion that she was not only the right person for the job, but the one who would have the authority to manage his brothers effectively. He made his decision. That evening, after a long day of work, Efosa sat down with Esohe in a quiet their office. The dim light of the desk lamp casting shadows across the room. He looked at her with seriousness in his eyes.
My love, I need you to take on a new role. You will be the general manager of this company, and my stepbrothers will be reporting directly to you. It's time to stop pretending that they qualified for the responsibility they've been given. They've proven that they can't be trusted with the company's future.
Esohe was taken aback by the sudden proposal. Though she had been working closely with Efosa for some time now, she knew how much the company meant to him, and how much effort he had put into building it from the ground up. But this was a huge responsibility.
Efosa, are you sure about this? You know how they are. If they find out,
I know how you feel about this, love. But they need to understand that they can't keep using this company as a stepping stone for their own selfish ambitions. They've done enough damage already. It's time to put an end to it.
Efosa's tone softened, but there was a quiet confidence in his words. You are the most qualified person for this position. I trust you with this more than anyone else. You have been by my side through everything. And now it is time to show them that they can't control the company anymore. Esohe studied him for a moment, her mind racing. She could sense the weight of the decision's depth of Efosa's determination. This was not just about business. It was about taking back control, about righting the wrongs that had been done. She could see the fire in Efosa's eyes, and in that moment, she understood the gravity of the task ahead. "All right," she said finally, her voice resolute. "I will do it. But we need to move quickly. We can't afford to let them catch wind of this too soon." Efosa nodded. "Exactly. We set it all up quickly and quietly. Once everything is in place, I will handle the rest. It is time to put an end to their schemes." With Esohe officially appointed as the general manager, Efosa made arrangements for a meeting with the senior management team. He wanted to make sure that his transition was smooth, that his brothers would understand their new place in the company. Efosa made it clear that they would no longer have the free rein over the company's operations. They would be accountable to Esohe, and our authority would be absolute. The meeting was set for the following day. Efosa was ready, and he knew that this was the moment when things would truly change. The day of the meeting arrived, and the atmosphere in the boardroom was thick with anticipation. Ehiz and Jude, who had become increasingly confident in their ability to manipulate the company, were shocked when they saw the shift in power. They were expecting to walk into another meeting where they could continue playing their games, but instead, they found themselves confronted with an entirely new reality. Efosa entered the room with Esohe at his side. Her presence commanded attention, and she exuded an air of authority that instantly set the tone for the meeting. Efosa wasted no time in addressing the situation. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice steady and authoritative, "this company is no longer a playground for personal gain. I have had enough of the mismanagement and unethical practices and corruption. Effective immediately, Esoe will be taken over as general manager. From now on, you will report directly to her." Ehiz and Jude exchanged nervous glances, but they said nothing. They didn't know how to react to the sudden change. They had always assumed that they could manipulate Efosa for their own benefit, but now they were faced with an entirely new set of rules. "I suggest you both take this opportunity to reconsider your actions," Efosa continued, his gaze unwavering. "The company's future is not up for debate, and if you continue down the path you've been on, you won't just be losing your jobs, you'll be losing your place in this company altogether." With that, Efosa turned to leave the meeting room, his message clear. The game had changed and his brothers were no longer in control. As they watched Efosa and Esoe walked out, Ehiz and Jude realized that their time of manipulating the company for their own benefit had come to an end. The road ahead was uncertain, and they knew they had to tread carefully. But Efosa, now in control, had a plan. The company would rise to greater heights, and he would ensure that those who tried to undermine him would not escape unscathed. The battle was far from over, but Efosa had won the first crucial victory. Ehiz and Jude were still reeling from the shock of Efosa's decision to appoint Esoe as the general manager. The two brothers, who had grown accustomed to using their position for personal gain, couldn't fathom how Efosa, the junior staff they had mocked and belittled, could now have the power to make such a bold move. They met in their usual secret place, plotting their next steps. "This doesn't make sense," Ehiz muttered, his face contorted with frustration. "How can Efosa appoint Esoe as the general manager? He's just a junior staff. What qualification does he even have to make such a decision? He didn't even finish school, did he?" Jude, his younger brother, nodded in agreement. "Exactly, he didn't even apply for a position at the company with a degree. If anyone should be in charge, it should be one of us, people who have actually worked in the field and built connections. But he doesn't have the experience to run this company." The brothers had always assumed that their shared bloodline and their ability to play the system would be enough to secure their place at the top. But Efosa's move had blindsided them. They were no longer in control, and they were scrambling to find a way to regain power. "Okay, we need to start laying the groundwork," he said, his mind already working through the possibilities. "When the chairman comes back, we will make sure he knows everything. Efosa doesn't even have a proper degree. We will tell him that Efosa was a junior staff member when he started here, and it is clear he has no formal qualifications. We will discredit him, make sure the chairman sees him for the fraud he is." Jude smiled at the thought. "Yes, we will use that at our advantage. The chairman can't possibly think someone without a degree is fit to run a company, especially not one as successful as this." Efosa, always several steps ahead, had already anticipated their move. He had instructed Esoe, now the general manager, to make an official announcement to the companies, informing everyone that the chairman will be returning in 2 months for a crucial meeting. The brothers had no idea, but that was precisely when the final review would take place. Efosa was in control, and he wasn't about to let his brothers, who had spent so much of their time undermining him, sabotage his success. Meanwhile, Back at the company, Efosa continued to assert authority as the new general manager. Under her leadership, things began to change quickly. The work environment became more focused, and the company's operation began to run more smoothly. The executives and the staff were adapting to the new order, and Efosa's calculated steps were already paying off. But for Ehiz and Jude, it was only a matter of time before they would attempt their next move. The brothers began circulating rumors about Efosa's qualifications. They whispered to the staff and other executives, claiming that Efosa was unqualified for his position and that his rise in the company had been nothing but luck and manipulation. They even hinted that the chairman would be disappointed to find out that Efosa had never properly applied for the position with the right credentials. To Ehiz and Jude, this was the perfect chance to discredit him. Just wait for the chairman's return, Ehiz said smugly, thinking that their plan was foolproof. Once he sees Efosa doesn't even have a degree, it is game over for him. The company will see that it was all a mistake. But what Ehiz and Jude didn't realize, as they schemed, was that the chairman, they were so eager to discredit Efosa in front of was none other than Efosa himself. Efosa had made a deliberate choice to remain in the shadows, overseeing the company while his brothers tried to undermine his position. He had never applied for a job at the company with a degree because he didn't need to. His qualifications were more than just a piece of paper. They were the result of years of hard work, sacrifice, and dedication. When he had built the company from the ground up, he had never carried about conventional forms of recognition. But now, as the chairman of the company, he knew that his brothers needed to understand who truly held the power. Efosa's plan was coming to fruition. 2 months passed quickly, and the day of the chairman's return was far approaching. Efosa had made sure everything was in place for his grand review. He had already spoken with the necessary people, ensuring that the board members and senior executives were prepared to welcome him back without suspicion. Efosa, meanwhile, had been instrumental in maintaining the stability of the company. She had kept everything running smoothly, all while making sure that Efosa's true identity remained concealed. The brothers continued to grow more and more anxious, knowing that the chairman's return was their last chance to regain control of the company. On the day the chairman was expected to arrive, the entire company gathered for a grand meeting. Executives, employees, and managers waited eagerly for the announcement. Ehiz and Jude stood at the front, their faces filled with anticipation. They couldn't wait for the moment when they could present the accusations and discredit Efosa in front of everyone. When the doors to the conference room opened, everyone's eyes turned to see the chairman walking in. It was a moment of utter silence. Efosa, dressed in a crisp suit, walked into the room with the confident stride of a man who had earned his place at the top. As he made his way to the head of the table, the shock on Ehiz and Jude's faces was immediate. They hadn't expected this, hadn't anticipated that the chairman would be none other than their own brother. Efosa, through the crowd, his voice barely above his whisper, but you. Efosa raised a hand to silence him, his expression calm and composed.
I am the chairman you've been waiting for. I have been overseeing the company's growth, ensuring that it stayed on track while you were too busy trying to manipulate the system for your own benefit. I didn't need to show up with a degree. I didn't need to be like you or follow your misguided ideas of power. What I needed was the drive to build something lasting. And that's what I've done.
He turned his gaze to his brothers, who were now visibly shaking. You thought you could take control of this company through manipulation, didn't you? You thought you could discredit me undermine me, and ruin everything I have built? But the truth is, you were always playing checkers while I was playing chess. Ehiz and Jude stood there, stunned and speechless, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The truth had been laid bare before them. Efosa was not just a junior staff or some naive worker. He was the mastermind behind everything, and their petty schemes had come crashing down around them. Efosa's voice remained steady and clear. As for your accusations about my qualifications, I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I built this company from the ground up. I've always known where my true worth lies. You, on the other hand, have shown nothing but greed and deceit. SOS, standing beside Efosa, looked at the brothers with quiet disdain. This company's future will not be tainted by your actions. From now on, you will answer to Efosa, and you will learn to respect the people who actually make these companies thrive. The room remained silent as Efosa's words sank in. Ehiz and Jude had been bested at their own game, and there was nothing left for them to do but to watch as their world crumbled.
Welcome to EGC, welcome to my company.